League of Legends versus Dota 2. This is a topic that I wish someone else had already made a video on, but for some reason, no matter how much I look around on YouTube, I could barely find any videos covering this topic analytically, in depth, and without bias. And the reason why that is because it really is like comparing apples to oranges. The games, despite both being MOBAs, are different enough where you will clearly have a preference for one over the other. However, that takes time. It takes about 100 hours of playing League of Legends and 100 hours of playing Dota to really be able to have a clear understanding of the differences between the two. And I'm making this video to save you time. Now, what a lot of people do in videos like this is they make a pros and cons list. They say, here are the pros of League of Legends. Here are the cons of League of Legends. Here are the pros of Dota 2. Here are the cons of Dota 2. But this is a really silly thing to do. And the reason why this is very silly is because what might be a pro for someone could be a con for someone else. For example, I personally love a steep learning curve. I like getting thrown in the deep end. I like having to figure things out. I love being overwhelmed with systems and things I don't understand, and I love having to figure them out. A lot of people don't like that. They want their experience to be more streamlined. They want a lower barrier to entry. They want to understand how things work pretty quickly and be able to pick up and play. And so for that reason, I'm not going to be doing a pros and cons list. I'm going to be using the analogy of soccer versus American football. Now, I know if you're not American, you're not calling it soccer. You're just calling it football. But I'm American, so I'm calling it soccer. When my dad was a little kid back in Egypt, he grew up in Egypt. He was born in Egypt. And when he was a kid in the 70s and the 80s, he didn't grow up very well off. And so he would run around on the street, in the street, playing soccer with his friends. They would not have any equipment. They would just have an old soccer ball. You know, it's dirty, it's muddy. They're drawing goalposts in the sand, and it worked. And the barrier to entry in soccer is very low. Soccer also has worldwide appeal. They play soccer in America. They play soccer in Europe. They play soccer in Asia. They play soccer everywhere. And so it has this huge wide appeal. And the way that I'm comparing this to League of Legends and Dota is the barrier to entry in League is also low, just like in soccer. The actual system requirements themselves are lower. You could play League of Legends on any potato computer. Dota, it's a bit higher. You're going to need some PC specs to be able to play Dota well. So this is like football equipment. To play American football, you need a helmet, you need pads, you need goalposts, you need turf, you need fancy shoes. So the system requirements is much lower for League of Legends. Now, additionally, the actual skill sets you need, the actual barrier to entry in terms of understanding the game is lower in League of Legends. It's a simpler game. There's simpler things to understand, and it's easier for a new player to get into. A lot of people joke around and say that League of Legends is the tutorial for Dota 2, and there is some truth to that. It's easier to pick up and play, but that doesn't mean that it has a lower skill ceiling, right? It's easy to pick up and play, but it's very, very hard to master, just like soccer. It's easy to pick up and play, but to be a professional soccer player takes a very high learning curve. So don't get it twisted that League is the easier game. It's not necessarily the easier game. It's just easier to get into, has a lower barrier to entry, has a bigger appeal. League of Legends is the bigger game by a long shot. It has more international appeal, and there are way more people that play League than Dota. And if we're to compare things like the esports, they both actually have a pretty good esports scene. There is a lot of tournaments going on for League of Legends you could watch. There's a lot for Dota you could watch. So it is like football and like soccer, where they both have good scenes of esports or real sports that you could watch. Now, in American football, the rule set is a bit more complicated. There's more rules to understand. It's harder to kind of strategize. And a lot of the gameplay in American football is about strategy. And sometimes you see these graphs and these pictures of the macro play. And much in the same way, Dota focuses on the macro strategy, the big picture strategy. What's going on the whole map? And it places a greater emphasis on that than League does. League is a bit more about mechanical skill, and it places and emphasizes its complexity in the mechanical skill. You know, you're kind of playing dodgeball, you're dodging mechanics, you're throwing mechanics, and then there's combos and trick shots. It's kind of like a fighting game mixed in with a MOBA. Whereas Dota is a bit more like chess. It's a bit more paying attention to the map, you know, thinking 5, 6 steps ahead in terms of what you're going to do on the grand scale. And it requires a bit more teamwork, and it places an emphasis on that. Now, that's not to say that both don't have both. League also has some macro play, and Dota does require mechanical skill, but Dota places an emphasis on macro strategy. And League of Legends places an emphasis on mechanical skill. Now, let's talk about monetization real quick. League of Legends has characters locked behind a paywall. You have to pay real money to unlock all of the characters in League of Legends, or you can play and you could earn currency by playing, and slowly but surely, through just playing the game, you can buy new characters. But this is time gated. You're going to have to play very frequently and over time to unlock all of your characters. This is not the case in Dota. In Dota, all of the characters are immediately unlocked right off the bat. So there's that. They both have skins, however, and they both monetize cosmetics. So when it comes to monetization, Dota has the better monetization. Now let's talk about cheaters and hackers. Riot, the developer for League of Legends, does come out there and it does write dev blogs about how much cheaters there are in the game. And based on their dev blogs, it seems like the cheaters in League of Legends hover around 1%. Whereas in Dota, there was a study done in 2018, so it was a little bit ago, that there are about 12% cheaters in Dota. Now, Valve is a company, and Valve is the company that makes Dota, is not known to be able to handle cheaters well. If you look at their other games like Team Fortress 2 or CSGO, they've had cheating problems in their game for a while. Now, it's hard to quantify exactly how many cheaters there are, but based on track record alone, League of Legends is made by Riot, which also makes games like Valorant, which also has record low cheaters compared to other PC FPSs that are available today. And so based on track record, based on what Riot has said, based on what we know about Valve, Dota, unfortunately, does seem to be the game with more cheaters than League of Legends. And if you look at player reports, this also kind of confirms this to be the case. You get a lot more complaints about cheaters in Dota than you do in League of Legends. So the cheating situation is better in League. Now, if you talk about the current state of the two games, a lot of people currently, at the time I'm recording this, which is September 21st, 2023, a lot of League players are upset with League. They think the meta is kind of stale. They think the meta is kind of dry, and that, there's not a lot of innovation going on in that game. If you compare that to Dota, however, Dota 2 recently came out with a huge patch. The map got 40% bigger. The gameplay has changed. There are things like lotuses and neutral items, which if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. They're just adding more stuff to the game. They're innovating it, and they are taking risks with it. And the player base seems to be very happy with the changes that have happened recently in Dota. Patch 7.33 came out. People are happy with that. So when it comes to the progression of the game, people are a lot more happy with the way that Dota has been going than League lately. And there have been some League players that have been moving over to Dota from League of Legends for that reason. Now, to wrap up this video, I kind of want to talk about my own preferences. Me, personally, I prefer Dota 2 over League of Legends. Every single game of League of Legends feels more similar to each other than every game of Dota. There's just more things that could happen in Dota. Every single game of Dota I play feels vastly different. And since there's so much more to learn in that game because it has so much more complexity, I'm learning more and more and more. And the steeper the learning curve of it in the game, the harder it is to learn, the more frustrating it is up front, but usually the more rewarding it is in the long run. And I kind of just prefer that than something a bit more casual and something that's a bit more easy to pick up. So also, the second reason I personally prefer Dota 2 over League of Legends is I agree with streamer XQC when XQC says that Dota has soul and League of Legends is soulless. I think League of Legends is a bit corporatized. I think it tries to please too many people, and for that reason, it's kind of watered down. You know, like TV commercials where they're so boring because they have to appeal to so many different types of people, so they don't say anything cliche, they don't take any risks, and it's like super polished. That's how League of Legends feels to me. And the third reason I prefer Dota over League is because of an experience I had once with a streamer. I'm not going to name their name. There's this female streamer on Twitch who plays League of Legends. And I kind of typed in chat one day, I'm like, why do you play this game and not Dota? And she says, oh, you know, League of Legends, it's so cute. Like I play for the skins. I think it's cute. Like, I like how everything looks. And so it's waifu simulator. It's cutesy. It's artsy. It's bubbly. Whereas Dota is a bit more rough around the edges. But Dota is a game for 40-year-old men who are drinking vodka.